Good evening and welcome. I'm Lynn Krizik, and I'd like to begin by thanking our community members, our students, our faculty, our board members for being here this evening to come out to tonight's forum on the stadium usage ordinance request that we have made. York Principal Diana Smith, Athletic Director John Rudder, and Director of Buildings and Grounds Frank Hsu all appreciate you taking time out of your busy lives to be here this evening. Listening to the feedback that we received at the ordinance hearings scheduled for September 9th served to reaffirm for us that it was both critical and important to hold a meeting with our community as part of this ordinance change request process in order to bring people together to solve an issue that affects so many for so many different but equally important reasons. As part of tonight's forum, we are hoping to better inform our community of what we are seeking in the application to change the 1986 ordinance affecting light usage at the stadium, to better describe the changes made to and the needs of the programs we make available to our students, to acknowledge our commitment to working with the City of Elmhurst and the Elmhurst Police Department to improve the safety of our students and residents when evening events are scheduled at the stadium, and to create an opportunity to receive and listen to feedback about our proposal as we seek to be a better neighbor, so that the revision of the ordinance proposal going forth can be one that is both understandable and acceptable to our entire community, is one that will seek the balance of the needs of our students while also being sensitive to the impact our programs have on our neighbors, is one that includes an evaluation timeline for making changes to our lighting and sound systems when fiscal resources become available. Tonight, I would like to acknowledge that we had not kept track or anticipated how often the use of the field would require the use of lights after the installation of the turf. For those of you who believe that we had not been accountable for our actions or more proactive with our plans, I'm genuinely sorry that we have disappointed you. We recognize that we should not have waited to receive feedback from our community, but that we need to find better ways to reaching out to our community to obtain feedback. Hearing that there had been some long-standing concerns about our use of the stadium and its impact on our surrounding community, learning there was not a viable or a perceived viable mechanism for these concerns to be brought forth, and learning that it was believed that we had not responded well to any concerns brought forth weighed heavily on all of us. Upon learning that the lights remained on well past midnight a few weeks ago, we put plans in place to clean the stadium without the use of lights. Upon learning that some of the music being played at soccer games was offensive to some, we eliminated the playing of this music. We are sorry for not working harder to strengthen our relationships with our communities, but please know that we have worked to address many of the unintended consequences of actions that have occurred in the last few months. We have always valued the support and involvement our community has had with York and the entire district. We seek tonight to build bridges, trust, and understanding with everyone here. We are not seeking to polarize this community over this issue, but instead hope as a result of tonight's meeting that we bring the community together on supporting a solution to an issue on how to optimize a valuable resource and how to minimize the impact this use may have on our surrounding neighbors. Tonight, we are reaching out to you to hear your comments, questions, suggestions, concerns, and ideas. Because there are many of you here this evening, we will ask that everyone keep their comments brief so that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. And if we could ask for some indulgence in allowing any students who would like to speak this evening and letting them go first so we can let them do their homework this evening, that would be much appreciated if we could be so kind as to ask that. We believe the most important part of the meeting is to listen and to receive your concerns, feedback, suggestions, and ideas. What you share with us this evening will enable us to make the best recommendations going forward and bring us together as a community in finding solutions that work for everyone now and in the immediate future. Before we begin the public participation process of this meeting, we'd like to begin by providing you with some important information that we hope will better frame the stadium's ordinance request as well as share with you some of the preliminary, tentative changes being made to our original request, changes that were being made as a direct result of the feedback we have received thus far. So without further ado, I'd like to now turn the next portion of the meeting over to York Principal Diana Smith.
Thank you, and welcome to York. We appreciate, as Dr. Krizik said, having this opportunity to welcome our neighbors and community members, parents, and our students. I was thinking a little while ago about a forum that we had at York several years ago, a community forum where neighbors and parents and staff and students came together to talk about their perspective on building a new high school. And thanks to the support of this great city, we were able to build this state-of-the-art high school. But I also remember that at the forum, it was clear from the voices, from the neighbors, from the community, that rather than looking for space at the edge of town, that it was the strong feeling that the high school should continue to be located here, that it was important for it to be a community school, and we were thrilled with that result. But with the construction of the new building, it did result in a significant reduction in the amount of practice space and competition space that we had outside. And as a result, we moved a number of our practices and even competitions to off-site, and Mr. Rutter's going to touch on that. But once again, the community came together and supported the installation of a turf field, and this has meant so much more to us than simply talking about turf. At the high school, what it has meant is that we can move our PE classes outside every day when the weather is good. We have, in addition to, obviously, people talk about football, but our marching band practice is able to go out during the day. Our cheerleaders, our POMs, we can have simultaneous practice, football and cross country at the same time. It's allowed us to bring girls soccer back from Elmhurst College, and it has meant a great deal to us, to the students and the parents. And I would tell you from the principal's perspective, we want to have our kids here on site. It is safer for them to be here. We can provide far better supervision. We have our trainers for first aid close by. It certainly has reduced our transportation costs to have them back, but it's also freed up off-site community fields for the community. More importantly, though, the kids are here with us. There may be a tendency in all of this conversation about athletics and the stadium field to think that athletics shouldn't have such a great influence on a school. But what we know, and there is an abundance of research on this, that there are great positive effects of extracurricular activities on academics. It may seem counterintuitive. If they're in activities after school, how are they getting their homework done? But in fact, the national and local research shows us just the opposite. Students in extracurricular activities have higher grades. Why? They are organized. They are coached by men and women who teach them that academics come first. They are taught that to be a role model, they must be role models in the classroom as well as on the field. In fact, we believe that students who are two-sport athletes have a tendency to see their grades drop in the off-season. We also know at York that students in activities have better attendance and are far less likely to be in trouble. And that number certainly bears out when we look at the number of students who have been suspended, for example. Over 2 to 1, those suspensions are earned by students who are not in a single activity during the year. We also know that athletes build more than strength and agility. They build leadership, team building skills. They learn the value of setting goals and the importance of working hard to reach them. And we know as a school, and I think as a community, the value of holding athletic events here, playing at home in your own stadium, builds a sense of school pride and of community, not just for our athletes, but for the fans and the parents and our staff, and I hope for the city. When we talk to students about making good choices outside of school, they will often say, and parents, I'm sure you've heard this, I have too, there's nothing to do. We know that isn't true, but we also know that at York, our school day ends at 3:11, and we have over 2,600 students that are going to go somewhere. And we know as a community that we agree that we must work together to continue to provide safe, structured, healthy opportunities for kids, and we believe the best place to do that is here at York, because when we do, everybody wins. We are committed to working with you. We appreciate that you're here tonight, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. Mr. Rudder, that's you.
Good evening. And I too would like to echo my apologies as Dr. Krizik did. I'm the bad guy. I'm the gentleman who inherited as the athletic director the new field turf, and it was my intent to put as many different children out there on that field as often as possible, as many different teams out on that field as often as possible. And when we met as a coaching staff last fall, that was my goal, was to see how often we could utilize that to bring our kids back here home, back to on campus, if you will. We will continue, and we will, I'm guessing for many years to come, continue to utilize many of the facilities here in the city of Elmhurst. The stadium turf will only house so many. With over 1,800 athletes, you can quite imagine what a difficult task that is to house everyone. We've done a pretty good job of sharing. Last spring, that became a very, very busy field. We were, in my opinion, very fortunate to have a girls' soccer team, and I know they're here tonight too, to have a girls' soccer team that went out of their way, decided to take it upon themselves that if they wanted to get on the turf and utilize that facility, that they would come in every morning at 5:30 in the morning. In fact, that's what time practice started, so they would arrive shortly before, or about 5:15. So we utilized it with our girls' soccer program. That field then gets utilized during the day, as Ms. Smith has said, by our band, by our PE students, by the community. And then in the afternoon and the evenings, again, it's picked up with all of our sports teams. The springtime actually had 11 different teams, if you will, 3 soccer levels, etc., out there utilizing that field, as well as our baseball and softball teams. We would hope to continue to do that. We also had lacrosse added to our athletic program last spring, and they were good-natured souls in taking the evenings for their practice time and their game times. So we're utilizing this field quite often. I would hope that it would be able to be utilized by all of our teams, all of the 1,800 or more athletes that we have here at York as we move forward as well. Some of the concerns we've heard here recently were the effect that extending those nighttime hours would have an effect on parking and on traffic. In fact, that we may be even hosting some concerts here. I will tell you, there will be no concerts here unless it's provided by our own students. The parking and the traffic, what we plan on doing is utilizing that as we have for the past several years. We don't anticipate large parking problems as we would for a football contest. Most of these contests that we're looking to add would involve soccer, lacrosse, and such, and those do not attract that large of a crowd. So we don't anticipate that those would be any problem whatsoever. I've enclosed in here, if you care to take a look in your packet, what our anticipation is. I will point out to you that the red would be the ultimate, and when I say that, that would mean that we were good enough to host. So we may end up having to go to some of those nights as well. But that should give you a pretty good idea of how we've revised. It looks like this. It's called Recently Submitted Ordinance Requests. Sorry about that. I believe it's page 4. You can see where our request began. We have since obviously taken a look at that, and we have made some adjustments to that schedule. I think we've laid it out there pretty well for you to take a look at, and I think that would be obviously something that we can answer questions on here shortly. Okay, and the other page, page 3, I believe, what I did was I polled all the athletic directors in the surrounding communities, phoned all of these high schools that you'll see listed here, comparison of stadium light usage in our surrounding communities. Basically, we looked at the number of surrounding homes at each of these schools, whether or not they had a light and or a sound ordinance, and then any details, should they have a light or a sound ordinance that they could provide. We jotted down there real briefly. As you can see, under the light and sound ordinance of the schools that we surveyed around here, we were one of 2 now with a light and or a sound ordinance. You'll also notice some of the details involving times that the lights are shut off. But as I phoned around, very, very few of them have any kind of restrictions whatsoever. Okay. So that's just some information for you. Are we taking questions now? Is that what we'd like to do? So I think we're all up here to take some questions if you might have some. I think Dr. Krizik asked the girls' soccer team and any other students who would like to talk to go first so they can get home and get working on their homework. So with that, ladies, there's a microphone over here on your left. While they're talking, I will add for you.
I'm sorry.
Yes. If you give us 1 minute, I'll get to that, I promise. That'll be our first question. Let's let the girls talk here quick.
Hi, we're from the York Girls Soccer Program, and we're here to discuss the matter on the stadium lights and how important they are to us.
The first reason why the stadium is so important to us is that part of playing at our high school is to be on the field and in front of our fans.
Another reason is being able to play at our own stadium instead of going to Elmhurst College where you have to act like a visitor because it's not our own personal stadium.
Here at York, we're encouraged to be both great athletes and great students, and part of being able to practice in the morning allows us to practice with little distractions, and it also allows us to go home right after school rather than come home after practice exhausted and start our homework.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
We know that you have a lot of questions, and we will stay all night, and we really appreciate that the few kids that are here really wanted to speak and talk to you about the programs that they're involved in, so we really appreciate that.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Vanna, and I am this year's York Student Body President.
I'm Monica Cinto, and I'm this year's Student Body Secretary.
I'm Sam Boris, and I'm York's treasurer.
We make up part of the Student Council Executive Board. Being on student council, we help organize and create all of the spirit activities here at York. A huge event is obviously homecoming. Yet again, we broke another record with our attendance at the dance this year. But we all feel that it would not have been possible without all of the buildup we had planned coming into homecoming week. Student council works endlessly to plan for this dance and homecoming festivities. One of the most important being the traditional Powder Puff football game, where the junior and senior girls get to pump everyone up in a flag football game. With only 12 nights to light up the field during the year, it didn't seem fair to take a night away from any of the sports teams, and it wouldn't be fair to take away from 150 people that were involved in the Powder Puff game, our King and Queen of the Couch groups, as well as all of our spectators. Such a harsh limit on the number of times we can use the nights could have broken a tradition held here at York for more than 10 years now. This year, all three of us are seniors. After the Powder Puff game, our administration hosts a senior barbecue. We can't tell you enough how much it meant that the light could stay on for our class to have this moment. It brought people together and helped so many other students realize how lucky we were to be there in that moment. From that night, our class came to realize and learn how to represent our school as better upperclassmen and leaders. That is what we all want, to be better. One night under the lights can do that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelby Cost, and I'm one of 3 drum majors of the York Marching Band.
Hi everyone, my name is Justin Martin. I'm also another senior drum major of the York Dukes 2010-2011 Marching Band.
And we're here to talk to you about how important that we think marching band is, because we're out on that field every day, like it's already been said. We practice every day because on Friday it's game day for us too, just like for the football team and just like for all of our other athletic fall sports. And it's just the turf field, it's really done a lot for our program. I mean, when we had to go out on the field during the day when it wasn't the turf field, it's really difficult to march on kind of a lumpy field. So the turf field has really been an improvement for us. And I know Rachel just talked about the Powder Puff game, and the band was there too when we played. And like Rachel said, it was really a very special moment, especially for all of the seniors that were there to be able to be there with the lights.
It's just, this whole turf field is improved also our band and also our playing and bringing the whole band together. It's really helped everyone, sports, every sport, cross country, football. I mean, our marching band, it's really helped us, and it's really brought us together. Just having the facilities that we do. This high school is great, and we're so glad that our athletic director lets us use the marching band or the turf field to march on, and we're really fortunate to get the time that we have, and we really would appreciate it if we could have it.
Yeah, I mean, more. In addition to practicing every day during the day, during fourth and half of our lunch period, fifth period, we also have 2 week-long marching band camps in the summer to help everyone get ready to prepare for the season, because we really don't have a lot of time otherwise to use the field. So we do use the lights in the summer.
Thank you for your time.
Sure. Okay, sorry about that. Now, your question was, how many times have we? Okay, in this packet, let me try to give you that. Yeah, in this packet. Now I'm looking at the recently submitted ordinance request is located on the top, and then the revisions to the ordinance request is what we have presented to you this evening. All total, it will be a maximum of 127 days. Now, of that 127 days, the 11 dates under what we have labeled Tier 1 would be the times that the lights could be on as late as 10:30. And we included in that the regular season football games, the possible playoff games, should we be lucky enough to make the playoffs. And then if we are fortunate enough to host a county or a regional track meet in the spring, then that may indeed go as late as 10:30. So of the 127 days that we've asked for, 11 of those would require the lights to be on past 9 p.m. Yeah, let me get through that real quickly. On Tier 2, you will find that all of our contests, as we have listed there, we predict will be done and the lights will be turned off before 9 p.m. and in most cases well before 9 p.m. Most of these things run till 7:30, 8 o'clock. So we've allowed a little extra time just in case we happen to have a soccer game that runs overtime or something of that nature. The Tier 3 can be a little misleading. The 42 days, we actually needed some lights in the spring when the daylight hours still have not helped us out. It's still dark at 5:30. As the spring moves on and we get to the middle of April and it becomes a little bit lighter, then obviously we won't need the lights in the morning, and hence the only need is for those 42 days. The second 42 listed there, I just wanted you to be aware, is the 42 days in the evenings that we anticipate using the lights as well. Once we get to mid to late April, early May, it's daylight out. We will not be using the lights for practices that nature past 8:30 p.m. Okay? Your question, sir? Sure. No. There would only be a maximum of 42 days a.m. The 127 will include all days listed Tier 1 through 4. And my guess, if you look at that, the 127 days, as you can tell, that is the maximum if we qualified in football. We were fortunate enough to host a regional or a sectional soccer tournament in both boys and girls soccer. And hosted 2 large track meets in girls and 2 large track meets in boys, which very rarely happens, but just on a case it may happen one year, then you would be aware to that. Follow up. Sure. Okay, the maximum, right. The maximum amount, if you add these up, the maximum amount of days that we would need the lights on in the evening, and when I say on, we flip the switch on, would be 127 evenings. No. Yeah. If you look at the very bottom, we have an asterisk by the numbers where the PA system may be used. We will not use a PA system for any kind of practices. Sure. Okay. Yeah, let's take one at a time. Question? Okay.
The question that I had earlier was, I was just trying to understand your chart here that you pointed to, and I think you were trying to point out some type of a certain significance around whether or not a community had a light or a sound ordinance. and you're putting here know that they don't have a light or a sound ordinance, and I'm just wondering, do they even have lights? So
Yes.
do they even need an ordinance? So all of these schools have lights?
No, you'll notice if you go down a little bit, there are 2 with no lights, and that's labeled no lights. The remainder do indeed have lights.
Okay. And the sound ordinance, I believe OSHA has a sound ordinance, don't they? And so, I mean, all of these people are required
Sure.
to follow, OSHA rules. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have a microphone.
To the lights. I've had 5 children graduate from here, and everyone was in.
Can we ask to use? It's on, I believe. Just
Is it on?
hold it up.
All right, every single one was in sports, every one of them, and they did it without lights. And just a little side: when you planned this gorgeous structure, where did you think they were going to practice? How come they didn't plan for area around here for children to practice? Why is it now that you have to use this? I live directly across the street, the corner of St. Charles Road and Hagen's. The noise, the loudspeaker, the lights, the parking, the traffic is horrendous. Still, that isn't what bothers me the most. I just don't trust you people. Do you know those lights are on till 2 and 3 in the morning every single time? Except now this last time when you've been asking for more time, then I noticed the lights are off. I have called the school and called them, which your superintendent says we never got any complaints. I've called and called. And you know what the answer is? Is that I'm terribly sorry, it won't happen again. No, it's, oh, well, that's the way it is. You know, they don't care that this is a community school, and what you do here and what you have here affects all of us. Now, I'm for the lights. 12 is ridiculous. Should have more time than that. But you've got to do things to placate the people that live around here. This is affecting all of us and our lifestyle.
And I do thank you for that, and I think that's why we're here, is to work with you. I'm a neighbor at a high school too, and I understand completely where you're coming from.
I'd like to make a comment, maybe simplify this a little bit. I'm looking at the tentative revision for the ordinance request. What I see is 11 days where the lights would be used until 10:30 p.m. The rest of the days we're asking for a change and limit the number of days that the lights would be on till 9. The current ordinance allows for the lights to be on till 8 o'clock, any day of the week, including the PA. Right now we're limiting that number of days for PA and for lights. So in reality, we are putting a major control in place that would help protect the neighborhood from the nuisance, and by there cap it. So really the change we're asking for is we're giving away a day of late nights, but we're getting remaining days controlled till 9 p.m. Is that correct? The original ordinance says 8 o'clock Sunday through Thursday. No, 8 o'clock Sunday through Thursday. Well, where's the time limit then for later? So the latest the lights could ever be on is 8 o'clock. Okay, so what I'm saying is the football games, I think we're talking about on Friday nights. Those would be those 11 days. The remaining days we're asking for would be an additional hour, and they're contained here.
On the front page of the, just for clarification purposes, on the front page of the handout that we gave this evening, we identified 5 of the key highlights of the current ordinance. And what the current ordinance currently allows for is 12 dates, only a maximum of 12 dates in any year for the use of lights to be used. There is a clarification. We can use 12 of those dates Monday through Thursday. We could use 12 of those dates on Fridays only, or a combination thereof. And so what the current ordinance indicates is that if we use the lights on Friday, we have to turn them off by 10:30. If we use the lights Monday through Thursday, the lights had to be turned off by 8 o'clock. There was no provision in the current ordinance for lights on Saturday or Sunday, and we are currently not asking for lights in this revision to be on Saturdays or Sundays as well. So there is a substantive change between the 1986 ordinance and what we're asking for, and that we're basically asking for additional days. But we are also trying to be realistic in terms of being clear and accountable to what the optimum or the outside hours are that we would need the lights to be on. And we have, just in response to something that was said earlier, we now have put in a different cleaning system of the stadium where the lights are being turned off at 10:30 p.m. Because we need to have the stadium cleaned. We have a little bit of a skunk problem here in Elmhurst, if some of you have not noticed. And we want to make sure that we do not leave a stadium left filthy or dirty with debris and clean it up the next day. So we have made that change. And we, again, are sincerely apologetic for times then that it went beyond the 10:30 time. But I will say to you that since in the last 3 weeks, we have not been a minute past 10:30 on those football game nights, and we will not be, with the exception of inclement weather happening, and there'll be a delay of a game, and then those would be extenuating circumstances of which we would have no control. Those of you who know that, we would have to vacate the field for a half hour in the event of a lightning storm.
But you're not speaking of the fact that you've been violating the current ordinance during the week with powder puff football, with loud noise, Lady Marmalade at 7:10, lights off sometime around 8:05, when the ordinance says you should be down at 8. And that's within the last week, I might add.
And I did start this evening, and I don't know if you were here at the beginning, I did acknowledge that we have not been as consistent in the implementation of the ordinance as we should be, and we've apologized for that.
But when my comment goes to the fact is, there was a zoning committee meeting, a lot of us came forth, we brought our issues forward, and yet a week ago, you still aren't living up to the ordinance. And that's a huge concern. So going back to Mrs. Cronin's comment around the sincerity, the lack of trust, and I appreciate the fact that we now have a town meeting around this issue, an open house. I would ask the question why you chose not to have this discussion before approaching the zoning committee to engage the community, as was suggested by the elected officials.
Well, a couple things. We certainly were following the process, and we believed that the ordinance process that has been put in place by the city allows for us, for the very first time, to hear all of the concerns of all the citizens, enable to us to then be responsive to what those concerns were. So we believe that this process that they have in place and that this meeting tonight will lead to a great outcome. Without having all of the facts before everyone, we thought it would be presumptive to have a meeting without knowing all of the issues and concerns and without being able to clearly communicate to all of our constituencies.
My comment goes to the fact that this meeting could have happened before you approached the zoning committee. There is nothing in the process that would indicate the zoning committee is approached first versus the citizens. In fact, I do know from the elected officials that I've spoken to, the recommendation was to have a town meeting, an open forum with the neighbors first, and then to go to the zoning committee. And you chose not to do that.
We chose to follow a process and include, before we go back to the zoning commission again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is for us to revise our original proposal, which we have shared with you a tentative draft this evening, based on some feedback that we've heard. We believe that at the end of it, that this process will allow us to come together to some reasonable solutions, and that we believe that this engagement of all stakeholders, students, all community members, to be involved in this process would be a critical process. That request that came to the district came 48 hours before the zoning meeting was scheduled. We felt it would have been disingenuous to the entire community to cancel our attendance at a zoning meeting without being able to explain or communicate to our entire constituency why we were canceling that meeting. So it wasn't that we chose not to follow that. 48 hours prior to a zoning meeting, we didn't feel would be good communication or would express what our desire and intent was in terms of going forward with at least putting information out there so we can begin to get a response and a reaction. And really that's what tonight's all about, to have that engagement, to have that feedback, so that before the continuation of that hearing that will occur on October 14th, that we'll have had an opportunity to have had additional feedback from multiple stakeholders, because as Ms. Smith and Mr. Rudder and the students indicated, this use of this stadium, while we're very sensitive that it affects all of the neighbors that are immediately surrounding the stadium, it does in effect, affect our entire community. And so it is important that we made sure that our entire community had the opportunity to be engaged in this process.
I guess we just have a difference of opinion on what constitutes a democratic process. There's nothing that precluded you from having a meeting with all of the stakeholders prior to approaching the zoning committee and getting a complete and thorough case that can be presented that appreciated all of our opinions. And to this day, I find your approach disingenuous and insincere. And again, based on what I witnessed last week with that Powder Puff football game, totally unacceptable.
Thank you for your feedback.
Question.
We find ourselves here tonight with a recurring theme. This administration did not do their homework before they allowed the community to financially support their less than thorough decisions. I have lived in College View neighborhood for 16 years and time again have had to adjust and make compromises both financially and as a homeowner. There have been 2 referenda. The noise from the air conditioners, the parking, the traffic, the trash in my yard, not being able to park in front of my own home, and now the lights at the noise at the stadium. I chose College View knowing that we would have high school congestion. On the flip side, I love hearing the band marching and playing in the neighborhood, the sound of the excitement at the football games. I loved the fact that my child could go over and take part in the Powder Puff game knowing that they could walk safely to a school event. Now that you've allowed this community to raise money for this field without doing your due diligence, let's use the field and use it a lot. Let's not punish these kids. I like the changes of no music over the PA system early in the morning and late at night, dimming the lights in the PA system at reasonable hours. Again, let's allow these students to use this field, these lights, and be respectful of the neighbors and the hours of usage, and honor the commitment that you're trying to make. As Mrs. Cronin said and other people, you have not given us a feeling of being able to trust you based on past experiences. Let this time be the time that you're true to your word.
If I could just respond to that for a minute, Amy, I appreciate that feedback. And Mrs. Cronin, it pains me, it's painful to me as the principal here and a community member and somebody who lived in this neighborhood myself and raised my children here to hear the reaction from the neighbors. And I regret, as the principal, I want to take responsibility that I regret that we haven't had a more open dialogue about not just this issue, but we need to have more frequent meetings and forums so that we can talk about issues that are cropping up in the neighborhood. There was a letter to the editor that said, York claims they're a good neighbor, but clearly have not. And I would just say, I have never said we're a great neighbor. What I can tell you is I want to be a good neighbor. York wants to be a good neighbor. And when I listen, I hear the distrust. I talked to a number of the neighbors last week on the phone. I understand your concerns. The music the night of the soccer game right before the hearing, very poor choice. Not just a poor choice of music, I might add, but just a poor decision to be playing music loudly. I know that there have been concerns just in the last couple of weeks, now that the issues have really come to the forefront, concerns about the marching band and how loud they are. And yet, the marching band, the drum line, has been out practicing. One of the neighbors called me the other night, I think about 8:30, and I said, they can't possibly be marching over there. It's pitch black over there. And I went over, and sure enough, the drum line was practicing in the pitch black so they wouldn't disturb the neighbors. Didn't have the PA system on. And that's not safe for the kids. And the Powder Puff game, what I will tell you is that has been in the works for a long time. This is a tradition here. It's something, as somebody said, it's a very, you shouldn't have used one of the nights for the Powder Puff game. That's an important event to the kids. There were 1,000 people here. And we did run long. We tried to we let the clock run. We shut the lights off as quickly as we could. We cleaned up. The custodians were cleaning in the dark. And I regret that went as late as it did, but felt like it was what we needed to do to support the kids. And I understand your concerns. I want you to know that we hear them and want to work closely with you going forward. I would also mention, you asked the question about why wasn't this planned for back when we built the building? And I think it is important to recognize the increase in the number of students that are participating. So back in 1986, and you have the chart to look at, but it's when you think about the numbers of students, thankfully, that have joined programs and gotten involved, it has grown dramatically, and that has resulted in an increased demand for all of the space that we do have.
Part of the feeling in the community is that this is a process that's, to be harsh about it, being shoved down our throats. If that is not the case, and you mean what you're saying, then I suggest that you throw out the artificial date of October 14th, the zoning meeting, and meet with a representative group of people so that you can get a decision, some real input, and not, you can never make a decision with hundreds of people. If you get input from a group of 6 or 10 or whatever the right number is, and meet with them personally, and take that into account and make revisions accordingly, I think that'll go a long way to putting some teeth into the words that you're speaking.
I can't speak about the hearing. Is the district is engaged in that process, but what I can tell you is we would welcome an opportunity to sit down with you in a room. I do have to tell you that I think that it needs to involve more than just the neighbors, because I believe that it should also involve the other stakeholders. And I would welcome that opportunity and believe that probably moving forward, we need to have that mechanism in place on an ongoing basis.
You can't let October 14th happen and make a decision if you're sincere about what you just said. I'm sure if you go to the zoning board and say, you had this meeting, we need to have more input from the community, and I agree with what you said, and we want to postpone that for 30 days or whatever it is, you know, it would be, they couldn't say no. Who picks the members? Well, it should be...
Me?
The principal should run that committee, if you will, and have however many people you think it's necessary to get good input. But you're going to get sound bites here. You're not going to have discussion.
Again, I would welcome, I'll let the superintendent speak to the issue of the hearing. I would welcome an opportunity for the school officials to meet in a group and to establish some structure to meet in a more, I guess, a closer conversation. I have to tell you, I do think there's value. While it may feel a little bit like sound bites, I do think there's great value in having a meeting where everyone is invited. And we can at least, because we've had forums here before and we'll stay all night so that people can be heard. And I do think there's value in that. So thank you.
And if it isn't feasible to put a meeting together before October 14th, we certainly can ask to be put on the next agenda. That wouldn't be an issue. I do think the question is important in terms of the process for selecting that group of individuals to participate in this more intimate dialogue. And as Ms. Smith has just said, you know, this part of this meeting was to serve as that, to at least get some feedback to some of our tentative revisions to that initial proposal, because we did take the feedback that we heard on September 9th very seriously. We did take it seriously. Yes, we ran a powder puff game that was beyond 8 o'clock, but other than that, we did change the music. We did shut the lights off at 10:30 on Friday nights. I think we have tried to be as diligent as possible, given a variety of other restrictions that we're trying to work with. So we have made a sincere attempt to make some substantive changes. But, you know, again, maybe as an outcome of this meeting, we can identify a process for who those individuals would be and what that would look like. But I agree with Ms. Smith, it would have to be broader than only the neighbors, because the impact of the stadium is community-wide. So we can do a variety of different things.
Hi. I'm currently the parent of 2 current students with 2 more coming up the ranks here at York, and I fully support the use of lights and in fact think that the school has made quite a bit of concessions from your initial proposal. I'm not sure the community always realizes how lucky we are here to have the facilities we have. And if you attend any of the athletic events or other events that are here at the school with other schools and participants present, you often hear comments from people outside of the Elmhurst community of how lucky we are to have the facilities we have. So to not use the stadium lights to its fullest extent is really such a shame and a disservice to the students and to the community. And as Ms. Smith indicated, I also noticed last week driving down St. Charles that the drum corps was practicing in the dark, and quite honestly, I was appalled by that. You should not have students out in the dark at 8:30 at night. It's unsafe. You can't monitor what's going on, and I really, found that quite disturbing. But finally, sitting here listening to everyone speak, what I really find a bit disturbing is the fact that we as taxpayers are asking our school officials at the district and at the school level to spend all of this time regarding the use of stadium lights, when quite honestly I have to believe there are much more important matters regarding the education of the people in our community that they should be focusing on, and not the use of lights. I applaud your efforts, and I'm glad you're doing it, but I really wish the community would focus on more important things, because I know you have a better use of your time. Thank you.
Okay, as one of those taxpayers that actually pays taxes, and we are outside of the area that you guys seem to care about, we are outside the 500-foot area. We are probably 600 feet outside. We hear every single note of all the rap music, of all the metronome from the band. We hear everything. I'm not a big fan of the PA system. I don't care about the lights. It doesn't bother me that bad. I'm the other side of St. Charles. I understand. We're all taxpayers here. I have a 2.5-year-old. I have a 7-month-old. They have to sleep during the day. They have to sleep during the night. Sometimes our kids might need to go to bed before 10:30 at night. Sometimes they actually go to bed before 7:30 at night. They actually sleep at 7 at night. I have young kids. I have a house. Like I said, I'm a taxpayer. I care about the value of my house. I care about the fact that I butt up to the high school baseball field. I'm proud of the fact that I live in Elmhurst. I'm proud of the fact that I'm a taxpayer of Elmhurst. I'm proud of York High School, and I'm proud of our high school in general. I see all these people that work at York High School. I see all these people that go to York High School. I understand this. But what I don't get is when people come up here and say, hey, listen, it's embarrassing that we're wasting all this time talking about the fact that we're going to put the lights on longer. It's not about whether we're putting the lights on longer. We had 12 days a year in 1986. They were talking about putting the lights on longer. Your first ask was 200 plus days a year. That has a lot to do with my tax dollars. That's a lot to do with my house that doesn't fall into the minute little tiny area of, I don't know how many it is, 20, 30 houses that anybody cares about. I've got, there's a bunch of things I have a problem with, and there's a lot of people from my street on Winthrop, which is across from St. Charles. You guys don't follow the rules. It's 12 days a year. Since 1986, I guarantee you cannot count the days you have exceeded the 12 days a year. Since we had that meeting in September, you've exceeded that. And I guarantee you that going forward, you guys will exceed it. So what you guys are asking for previously was 200 plus days a year and no accountability. Well, you had no accountability before. You're looking for continuous official no accountability, and somewhere between 5 and 10 times what you had before. We had the soccer team up here earlier. We talked about Powder Puff. We talked about homecoming. Homecoming is one day. Hey, let them have homecoming. Let's have 20 days, 30, 40, 50 days a year. But 100, 200 days a year and continued no accountability, it's really easy to go from 12 days no accountability to 50 days, and then 100 days no accountability to 365 days a year.
I've got a son here and a daughter in college now. She's just first year. And I applaud the involvement of the students in activities here, their spirit, their dedication. My question in the spring was why my son couldn't get out on the field more often to get practice. He plays baseball. It's muddy, it's wet, it's dirty. Other people ought to be using that field as much as they can. These kids are dedicated to their sports, their activities. They want to go somewhere with it. I'm sorry that it bothers other people, your house, your lives. There's other situations in Elmhurst that affect my house. Non-for-profit organizations that run things that affect my life. I don't think I'm going to go over there and start complaining when I can't drive from my house. Some things you just got to put up with. I don't know where the venom came from in this whole thing and why it's us against them. Has anybody approached a coach the night there was something going on and asked him to do something?
Originally, in the opening statement, you said something about addressing the sound and light issue when a timeline was set up. What is the timeline to address lighting and sound? Because the lights are 1986 technology. There's newer technology out there. That's what boosters are for, those people who use the fields.
Mr. Hsu has already had a light evaluation done. It isn't fully completed, so I would be reluctant to put out this evening what those projected costs are going to be. But we are in the process of looking at a light evaluation. I will also say, in being Musco Lighting, we brought in Musco Lighting to do the evaluation. They're one of the premier lighting companies around that do a lot of the fields. So that's one thing. And when we have that in a format that the Board of Education can listen to too, to see if there's capital dollars allocated to that, then we can make those changes. Also, in being proactive, it was, I don't know how many years ago, Mr. Hsu, that we put in a new sound system? 5 years ago, a new sound system was put in, and we believe it probably needs to be revisited as well. When it was put in, it was before the turf field was, and it was going to be too expensive to put any conduit or anything under the field so that there could potentially be speakers on the visitor side, if I'm saying this correctly. When the turf installation went in, we actually put that conduit in, so in the event that we could redesign a sound system, that we had more options available to us than what the current system is. So I think it is Sound Concepts, is that the name of the company? Sound Inc. We have not yet fully engaged Sound Inc. in giving us options. Again, we had just redesigned it 5 years ago. Could there be better ways of addressing the sound? Possibly, and we'd like to look into that. But again, that is really part of our process this evening, and we heard that. We heard suggestions about relooking at the lighting. We heard suggestions about relooking at the sound. And so in order for us to come forth with reasonable recommendations for the board to consider, we have to do a thorough investigation, look at the cost, look at what the payback might be, and put that into our capital development plan. So we are taking a look at that. And I do hope that within the next, well, I would believe that within the next month we will have a light evaluation completed. That one will be completed, and we can. I think what the zoning board asked us for was, were we taking into consideration the replacement of any lights? In our application, we did indicate that when it was financially feasible, we would endeavor to do that, and we are trying to escalate that process just a little bit. So we are trying to move forward with that.
My name is Karen Gleason. I have 2 children here at York. I do live in the neighborhood, not in the 30-house zone, but I do live in the area and close to the school. Can hear the band from my home. Maybe not as close. So, I understand when you're right there that it's very difficult. But I will tell you that I cherish this school and the activities that go on at this school. I know that 12 days is not enough for this community to have lights. I think 12 days is on the level of somewhat ridiculous with the amount of children doing activities. But I do certainly understand that there's people in the area that we need to compromise with. And, the things that you can do to keep the PA system down, and, 47 days of these are practices, which, I understand it's frustrating to have lights, but they're off at 9 p.m. and 47 days, that shouldn't even be counted in this as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think the concern here, from what I can tell, would be more the noise. And I do not want the marching band practicing in the dark, but there are times in spring and in fall when that's going to happen. I don't want to babble on here, but I'll tell you, for the safety of my children and for the children of the community, I do want the lights on. And I'm willing to live with the noise in my neighborhood and the cars on my street. And this is what happens in a community. The community needs to vote. I now have a bike path running down my street, which I did not want. And I was very upset about it. But the community spoke, and I have a bike path, and I have to live with that. So I think we need to hear from everybody and do our best to compromise. But 12 days, not even close to cutting it on what this community needs.
Hi, my name is Sean Tui. I'm also a York neighbor. I want to support the lights. I guess my main purpose coming here today, and I think it's something that's been said already, it's unfortunate it's become us versus them. I don't think we need that. I want to find a reasonable solution to this, and I think some of the proposals you put forward are indeed reasonable. So reasonable, workable, and avoiding a knee-jerk reaction to this is my number one issue. But I guess my overall issue is the safety of the kids. And I did see the marching band out there at night. I was at a freshman football game when it was approaching darkness. I think it's a shame for some of our lacrosse kids to not get a chance to play on that tremendous field. I'd say, the community's put a lot of time, money, energy into that field, and let's use it. But let's be reasonable about it, and I think that's the most important. I think the things you said here tonight, having the lights off, trying to get the PA system out is certainly a good start, and I think we need more dialogue around that. I guess, as a York neighbor, have I been inconvenienced? Absolutely. Have you made mistakes? Certainly, but I'd say on balance, from where I sit, and I'm maybe not a 30 house, but I'm probably a 50 house, I think you're pretty darn good neighbors, and thank you.
I'm going to echo Mr. Tui. I also live in College View, as well as I live right behind the college. And I have commencement ceremonies, band concerts, football field, everything. And you guys are a good enough neighbor to tolerate garbage, litter, etc. And I think it's a shame that we can't look at the glass half full. We always have to look at it half empty. And we should support our children and support York.
It's a shame this is turning into a popularity contest, because there are far more people that are not affected by this issue who live far away than people who are affected by this issue. And I mean, in terms of the noise and the lights, who are directly impinged by the noise and the lights. So, if it comes down to a popularity contest, yes, we will lose the people that are affected by the lights. And I don't want to polarize it like that. I echo the sentiments that I want people to have a reasonable, rational exchange of views. And I think the promises that I've heard today are actually good promises. The problem that I have with promises is, frankly, what happens when you leave? There'll be new superintendents eventually, new principals eventually, new athletic directors eventually. And promises are wonderful, but they don't carry a lot of legacy with them. I think part of the thing that happened with the 1986 ordinance is because people, in a sense, forgot about it. and promises were probably made to obey it back in 1986. It just was eventually lingering on and forgotten and maybe not intentionally violated. So I have a document here. This letter is on behalf of a group of concerned residents in neighborhoods adjacent to York High School. Recently, District 205 has asked for a change in an existing ordinance which controls the number of days and years that the lights can be used. We are hoping that reasonable dialogue and rational exchanges can create a modified proposal that will work for everybody here. We are virtually certain that no resident definitely wants to reduce York's current allowance of 12 days per year for lights, just in case anybody was wondering that. Additionally, many of us believe that York should be allowed to reasonably expand their usage of the field. Our main concern revolved around the open-ended nature of District 205's request for 200 days a year potential event, which seemed excessive. Also, constant lights, noise, traffic, and parking issues affected the tone and character of our neighborhood. We would like a more specific request, which we saw today, which balances athletic needs with those of local families. Additionally, we hope that York High School takes a more proactive role in adhering to ordinance in the future. One more paragraph, sorry. Many affected residents do enjoy and support York games. I found the York games very exciting when I moved here, and we do not mind the occasional inconvenience. However, since last spring, the number and character events have significantly changed. Additionally, rough estimates place approximately, and this is very approximately, 25 to 50 children on each block close to the stadium. Now that's a sample pool of 2 blocks, so don't quote me on that. But 25 to 50 children on each block. That means that events on school nights, which could conceivably go till 11:30 or, as I just found out, 9 under the planned amendment, affect 150 to 300 children approximately within the range of lights, band, PA system, and crowd noise far past their bedtime. If it's all for the kids, as I've heard tonight, then how does this help our kids? How does this help my kid? How does this help your kid if you're within range of it? We believe that an informed public and district can come to a fair agreement. Thank you.
I have been raising my hand for a long time and waiting patiently to speak, so now it is my turn. My name is Denise St. John. I live at 396 South Berkeley Avenue, which is about 2 blocks, block west and a block south of the stadium. I have been all over the map on my feelings about the ordinance and how I stand on this, and I still am neutral. I am very disappointed and ashamed that it's become us or them, your kid, my kid. It's none of that. It's all of our homes together, and it's all of our kids together. So I won't pontificate on that note anymore. I am a very neutral person because my daughter went to school here, of course, for 4 years. She's now at the U of I. She was drum major for 2 years. I am the absolute biggest proponent of the marching band that there can be. With that in mind, I hate the metronome. However, I understand its purpose, and it's a good purpose. My son plays lacrosse, which I hate sports. He plays lacrosse and runs cross country. He is also in the marching band, and he is a drummer. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know he was drumming in the dark the other night, and to be honest with you, I really don't care. Now, I don't know how many of the neighbors have walked up and down Hillside Street Avenue, which is, I think, where many of the families are affected the most. There are tons of little kids on that block. One could say, yes, the people in that neighborhood chose to live there. The train runs right behind their home. They knew that when they bought it. They also knew that they were living next to a stadium. However, these are our fellow residents and our neighbors. They have little kids. Yes, we should utilize the field to its potential, but we have to keep in mind the needs of all, including those little kids, too. I walked up and down the street with my dog, about 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and there must have been 20 little kids up and down that street. And I first thought, well, too bad they moved in there, they knew what they bought. But I thought, you know what, when I was 30-some years old, I was in the same position with them and having to afford a house where I could live in. So I am very, very hopeful, enough pontificating again on my part, but we need to come together, not be angry with each other, and I'm not lecturing. I certainly am not a very righteous person or a holier-than-thou person, although I try to be at times. But this is ridiculous that we're wasting our time on this. The real issues of the world are a little boy died yesterday, and his funeral was today, and he was a member of the marching band and went to the school. We should all be sad about that, come to a conclusion about the lights in the field, and just be done.
I'd like to address something a little bit different, something that's not mentioned in here. I did not go to the Planning and Zoning Committee, so I'm not sure it was discussed. I did hear about the issue of the parking restrictions from the school district first, so I have to thank you for letting me know through your communication. I enjoy getting those emails. It keeps me informed now that my kids are gone. What I do have an issue with is they're putting the no parking signs on the street Friday before 5 o'clock in the evening, and they were not removed until after Monday morning. And they say no parking by order of police. No time, no date, nothing like that. And that becomes a problem over the weekend because we then have continued restricted parking. I know that might not be something that the school did itself, but it was an offshoot of the meeting that you had. So when you do address the city, I would really like for you to ask them about putting some restrictions on there so that we can have some parking over the weekend. It really would be nice. Thank you.
It isn't working. Is it working? Thank you for sharing that with us. I think there was, again, good intention by the City of Elmhurst Police to try to address traffic issues, but we will give that specificity recommendation. So thank you very much for that suggestion.
Is it okay if I jump in next? I don't know whose turn it is. First, I think it's hilarious that you don't care if your kid's playing in the dark, so I just wanted to say that. But I guess I just wanted to add on balance. I was a three-house neighbor of York High School for 17 years when my oldest kids were young. And on balance, there were some frustrations living here, but on the whole, I felt York High School is a pretty good neighbor, so I wanted to put that out on the table. We've since had to move. We upgraded the number of kids we have, and now we're over by Smalley Pool, and the speaker's on there, and on the whole, they're a pretty good neighbor. And so I wanted to throw that in balance. But there's two things that kind of resonate with me when I look at this. One is that you're probably not the only ones that have to apologize. Where this issue really stems from is this community put their shoulder and their heart into building a synthetic turf field out there that's increased our desire to use that field more. And a lot of people in this room participated in that, and I don't think we foresaw this problem. So I apologize. I was one of those people. And like a lot of people have said, I don't think this has to be a divisive issue, and I think the proposal you have is pretty fair, and that's my take. Everybody's entitled to their own. The only thing that's missing for me from this proposal is how do you address the good neighbor concerns that people have on, hey, we're not being heard when there's problems. So I'd like to stop focusing on all the negative stuff or positive stuff that happened in the past, and what are the checkpoint plans so that when things do or don't go right in the future, we address those. So that's all I had.
Feeling bad about those kids in the dark. They're not marching anymore. I just want everybody to know. After that night, they're not marching. They weren't marching it past that. And I appreciate your comments. And I think, ironically, I moved from this neighborhood and moved next to none other than Soldier Fields. So I went from being right here to being right next to that. So I appreciate that there can be some distractions. I want to make sure that anyone that is interested in participating in a dialogue prior to the next hearing would sign. We're going to have a notebook or a list out here. If you would please sign your name and your contact information. If you have any interest, whatever your opinion is, in establishing some kind of format, some kind of group that we can get together and start talking about some of these issues, because I know they extend beyond the sound and light. So please do that, and we'll make sure that we get a hold of you, because I appreciate that going forward we want to have a system in place.
What we put in the handout also were the other mechanisms for which you can receive information if you don't have students in the schools. And even if you do have students in the schools, mechanisms for how to submit your questions and concerns in a way that will be read by everyone. So we have the District Talk 205 messages, which is on one page, but we also showed you York Community High School's webpage as well. And we've had arrows pointed out where you can submit specifically your questions and comments and concerns to York. It won't take or detract from what Ms. Smith said about putting together a structure in place to be able to have more engaged dialogue. But this will be another way, another communication vehicle for you to both receive information as well as to give us some feedback and input. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had that we're aware of those communication vehicles.
I just wanted to say that I live 4 houses away from York High School, and we raised our 4 children here. And when we looked for a house, we looked everywhere. And we saw that we were 4 houses away from York High School. And we knew that when we bought our house. And we knew that when you live near a high school, there are going to be a lot of things that happen. So that's something that I think that when you're buying a house, you see that, especially if you're backed up to the, to the baseball field or whatever. So I think it's a wonderful school. I grew up in the city where we couldn't use the public school system like we do in the suburbs. That's why we moved to the suburbs. And the kids are wonderful here. And I'm so happy to be here. So.
I guess it's working. My name's Kevin Aher, and I have a son who is a sophomore and a lacrosse player. First of all, I'm really pleased to see the information that's in here. I think this is a great start in getting towards a good compromise. I'm glad to see that the lacrosse programs were specifically mentioned as something that will be allowed to use the lights in the springtime. One thing that I think you guys need to address specifically is what will be allowed when you are allowed to use the PA system. Is it strictly for announcers, or are you going to play rap music? Are you going to be doing all these different things? I think some of the neighbors in the area deserve to hear what's going on with the music, because frankly, at some of those events, I'm offended to hear what some of the things that are going on. And then finally, one thing that I would really recommend is on any of the nights that you are having the use of the lights, that you specifically have a point person who is available for complaints or comments or suggestions about what's happening specifically on that night. And there may be issues about parking. There may be issues about what's going on in the PA system, what's going on across the street if some of the kids are tailgating. If there's any things that should be addressed or should be kind of maybe paid attention to, that you have somebody who is specifically responsible for those kind of comments.
And I think that's really a helpful suggestion, and I think we've already provided several phone numbers of different people, but I think perhaps, and we can talk about this, when we get together as a group, but I think perhaps having a set of phone numbers that can be reached, at any time, maybe 2 or 3 phone numbers and an email, and maybe something right on the front of our website so that you can immediately go on there and click if you have a concern. Because between the 3 or 4 of us, you can reach us at any time.
Hello, my name's Terry Clark. I'm a Elmhurst resident since 1985, a York staff member since 1980, and I hear the parents up here. My son grew up on Benton Court, went to Jefferson, Bryan, and York, and I hope that your 150 kids that live in your neighborhood can experience this high school like he did, and the lights and all the things that go on with it. Also, we grew up strategically in between Butterfield Park, York Commons, and Jefferson School. You talk about no parking, I couldn't even get in my driveway at times because of the traffic over at Butterfield Park and the late nights. And yes, maybe my son, woke up from one of his naps, and maybe My son didn't get to bed at 7 o'clock all the time. Most of the time he did. Sometimes we just closed the window. But I think the bottom line tonight is we are a good neighbor. And, I've been here through several administrations, and our current administration is no different than any other one. They're in it for your kids, not only the York High School kids, but the small kids in the neighborhood. And I'm also guilty. The gentleman had said that the ordinance had faded away. I'm the voice in the spring of the track meets, the loud voice. That's me. I'm a football coach that I know we had the lights on, especially in 2006. I know we had the lights on probably 20 nights for football. But, I forgot all about the ordinance. I mean, I remember it, 1986. Mrs. Cronin, I remember, and I feel bad that we've ever offended you or anybody else in the neighborhood. And I would love to be part of any task force that that you could trust in us, because I trust in our administration, I trust in our kids, I trust in our community. And I hope you all will too. And we do need more nights of lights for our students. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Finan. I'm a mother of 2 kids that go to York. And I have a question. Who is in charge of turning the lights off that started this rolling? Who at York is in charge of turning off the lights?
You mean the name of the person?
No, a department?
I'm not.
Just who is there?
I'm trying to be light. I'm not. It's not that I'm not taking it seriously. But
I don't know if it was the coaches,
right. It's not easy to answer just one single person because of the time. 5 in the morning. There are shifts of people that come through. Ultimately, I'm the principal. I'm responsible for what goes on here. So let me say it stops with me. I'm not actually flipping the switch, although I might be after tonight.
But I mean, there's not a department head or an athletic director or anybody, a coach that we can turn to. Like if we're driving by and the lights are on, and we can call them and say the lights aren't on.
No, yeah, I understand. Frank Shu, Director of Facilities, and a number of your neighbors already have my card and cell phone number, and I have gotten some calls recently when there's some issues, and I hope I acted quickly on those things when I was called, and I'll be more than happy to give you my card tonight. So if the lights were to be on for any reason that we didn't know about, we could get them off right away. I can tell you that much like the rest of the problem, there's just some institutional amnesia that went on. The vast majority of people who were in charge of cleanups and setups for the football games over the last 20 years were not involved in the 1986 process. They knew there was a rough agreement with the community about number of nights per year, but everybody had a different memory of what the time was or wasn't. And what became a common practice long, long ago, back when I was in the athletic department, it was that way, is, as the cleanup progressed, we would cut down to just one bank of lights. And I know the people doing that cleanup traditionally tried to leave the bank of lights facing St. Charles Road on, thinking that they were avoiding bothering the neighbors who are so obviously proximate to us behind on the tracks. And, it really was a surprise and an eye-opener at the ordinance meeting, and something that we've worked to address, that so many of the neighbors on Winthrop were as affected as they were by the lights. So we have been since then diligent in making sure that we have a supervisor-level person responsible for the 10:30 shutoff. I don't think you'll have seen it gone a minute past that since that meeting. I've also walked along the Winthrop light, well, I've walked everywhere in the neighborhood, but including along the property line at Winthrop, taking light readings to get where we are currently, and to look into what kind of options down the line might get us to lower levels even when the lights are on, because while we were aware of the fact that there was a danger as being poor neighbors to our neighbors behind the tracks, we really would leave a bank of lights on while people were working the stadium just for convenience, not realizing how much that was impacting the neighbors on Winthrop. And of course that won't happen.
Well, I'm not a resident close to the stadium. It's just I feel bad for these residents. I mean, we do not know what they go through. I don't. When I went to my first Friday night game, I was walking down a hillside. We parked on Hillside, and I was walking, and I'm like, this is great. The band was going because I was late to the game, and the lights were on, and I'm thinking this must be hell for these people who live here. And I just think they need to be validated. I don't think they want these kids to be taken away from the stadium or be less on the stadium. I think they want to be validated, and I think they want, I agree with the gentleman in the maroon sweater, I think they need to sit down and come up with a solution that they would be happy with, and York people talk to you. And, you know, I didn't live near the stadium when my kids were napping. I apologize. But I had a guy who liked a leaf blower, you know, at 2 o'clock, but I didn't know that when I moved in. I mean, unfortunately, I'm sure you guys knew the stadium was there. I don't think any of you ever went to York and said in 1986, 1990, 2000, we're thinking about moving here. How many times do you have the lights on? I don't think you guys did that. But, you know, I do empathize with you, and I just think as a community we need to come together and come up with a solution for you guys that work. And I don't think you guys want to take anything away from the kids. Not at all.
I went to the restroom earlier, and I got some heat from people that thought I was leaving. Unfortunately, I'm not. And now I want to respond to the guy in the back here who, he's got kids in high school. I'm a selfish person. I have 2 little kids. I care about my kids. He cares about his kids. I understand that. What?
Okay. I'm going to cut in here because what we don't.
No, hold on. I'll repeat because I talked to her earlier. She said she moved by O'Hare,
Right.
and she couldn't call O'Hare and say, "Hey, listen, stop the airplanes."
Right.
I get that. I moved by York in 1986. York was supposed to abide by 12 days a year. They didn't do that then. Now they're asking for 10 times that. And I have zero confidence they will do that now. Let's get back to the point. The point is, for everyone in this entire room, what is the question? The question is, can we change the ordinance? The ordinance is, how many days can we keep the lights on and the associated sound on for the lights? That's the only question, right? Am I wrong? That's the only question at hand. But there's a bunch of repercussions. You don't follow the rules. There's no one that's accountable. And not only that, but when you went to the Planning and Zoning Commission, you asked that not only do you not have to follow the rules that you didn't have to follow before, but, hey, Planning and Zoning Commission, we don't even want you guys to follow the rules anymore. We don't want you guys to actually follow us anymore. So I understand the concern. My kids will go to York. I move. Yes, my kids will go to York. We're right next to York. I like York. I like Elmhurst. I love Elmhurst. But my concern is that the ask is so broad.
Can I just ask that some of the people show some respect to differing opinions and not the snickering that I'm observing? Because, you know, you talk about York High School and what York is trying to achieve, yet people here are snickering at other people, and that's totally unacceptable.
Please come to the Zoning and Planning Commission. All the people that are anti or that are pro turning on the lights 200 or 100 days a year, come in front of a board who actually has rules they have to follow. I'll be there. I'm sure you'll be there. All the people from my street will be there. All the people that are affected are going to be there. The people that go to York that are not going to be affected, they probably won't be there.
We appreciate your comments. Are there any other comments? Okay, go ahead.
First thing is,
everybody talks about not turning this into a us against them. And when you stand up here like that, you're turning all the people that love this community, love this high school, against the small group of people that are affected. I have sympathy with you. I live near Crestview Park. Every spring, my wife and I battle traffic on our street. I have a gun range over that is behind me by the tollway. I don't like getting up on Sunday mornings and listen to the guns going off, but you know what? They don't care. I could call there 100 times. You have 4 responsible people up here in front of this room that are telling you they will make a change. We have to give them a chance, okay? The ordinance needs to change. It's antiquated. It doesn't respond to the facilities we have, the number of kids we have in the program. It's totally different today. We will work with you guys in the community to try to restrict things, lights, sound, whatever it takes to get our kids on that field the maximum number of nights and days we can get. That's why we're asking for 200 or 150. We don't want to be squashed down to 25. It won't work for the number of kids we have in this program and at this school. Give these people a chance, please. We vote for them as school board members. We have input as to who the superintendent is. We have input as to who the principal is. Give them a chance, please. If you don't give them a chance and you just thumb your nose at it and say they've never lived up to the promises, they've been a bad neighbor, we'll never resolve this. You have to give the administration a chance to make a change. Please.
My bragging rights, I've been here since 1965. I graduated 74. Been living in my house since 84. I'm far enough away from the stadium where the lights don't bother me. The sound doesn't bother me, but the traffic. And my quick question is what's going to dictate when do the police put the signs up? And when, because I've dealt with the parking situation over there for years. And the kids crossing across your lawn and stuff like that, I can live with that. But I think what I need to know is when will the police be involved and all these different, you talk about different events like with the lacrosse, with the cross country. There might be a bunch of different events coming ahead. When the police will be involved and when not. I would think 12 times a year just for that alone.
Sure. No, I'm not the law here, but I'm going to guess that the only time that they would be involved would be a home football game. That's our largest crowds. Our other crowds are nowhere near that, and we anticipate that parking lots are plenty big enough for the rest of our events.
Part of the reason I came tonight was, and I'm happy to hear so many people stand up and say we need to be civil. There are some people in the community, a minority, that have used words like, this is war, that have used words like, you better watch out if you go down this path. I don't think there's anybody who wants fewer nights for the kids. And I agree, we want as much as we can so the kids can develop as best they can. But I'd ask those that are involved on the extreme ends on both sides to cut it out and just let's get along, let's come to a common good resolution to a situation that we have, and stop with the this is war, stop with you better be careful. And by the way, there have been some threats to other people worse than that, so cut it out.
Hi, my name is Sean Anderson, and I live on Winthrop as well. Just so you know, I am a local real estate agent full-time, and I'm here basically to talk about this so-called everyone's freaking out that their property values are going to drop. When you spend $1 million on a turf, what does it do? It brings more people here because they see the value in our school. My husband and I know there are many people in this room who donated lots and lots of money. And many are saying, if my child can't use the field, then I want it back. That's what I've been hearing. We also happen to have a lacrosse daughter who plays. And many times we've had to take her 1 block to play at 5:30 in the morning in the rain because there isn't time for them to play. So we live a block away. We hear the noise. When I show sellers, what do they always say? Location, location, location. Where you choose to live is where you choose to live for a reason. Whether you need to be close to the train to get to work or to whatever school it is, if you have people crossing the street in front of your house or parking their cars in front of the grade school that you live in front of, you had a child at that time who attended that school and you just dealt with it. What will happen when your small children grow up and want to go to York? Will you then complain then too when the lights are still on and your child can't play in them?
My name's Kurt Sundberg, and I just want to reinforce one other idea that came up earlier, and I think, we're hopefully it's going to move the right direction with the committee and stuff, but I think one of the most important things, and this was mentioned earlier, is to set specific dates and a timeline, a reasonable timeline, so it doesn't go on forever, but you don't let other outside dates drive it, so it seems like it was ramrodded or something like that. So I just ask you to consider that going forward.
In looking at what the original submitted ordinance request was, and my name is Vincent Gotti, myself and Neil Vandenberg started Elmhurst Youth Lacrosse, but if I was on your streets till 11 o'clock Monday through Friday, basically every night of the year, I'd be up here too complaining. But what have you seen now that you've seen a revised proposal that it's till 9 o'clock, which is a lot more reasonable? I agree there needs to be accountability, that if it's on at 9:30 or 9:40, it says 9 o'clock, what is that accountability to make sure that you are a good neighbor, that York's a good neighbor, and that this will be happening, because you don't want it to creep up. But again, what is the thought with the proposal, what it is now, or what's been proposed that I think all of us have just seen this evening?
That works for everybody, that works for the athletics, that works for the kids, works for the school, works for the facility, works for the neighbors. Why not?
So that we don't offend anyone else, because that is not our intent. We certainly would need some guidance and help in terms of who would represent the immediate community around the school. We would want to be, open about that, and we would want to be open about that. I certainly think that we can identify all the other participant groups, student groups, faculty groups, athletic booster groups, but our genuine, sincere concern is how would we, and we're open to listening, how would we select, 2 or 3 individuals of the neighbors, because I think the suggestion is to have a room of maybe about a dozen people sitting together, having a dialogue, having an exchange. We're open to suggestions on that. Again, we're fearful of, saying that not everybody had the opportunity to even hear that they could have been a participant in the process. So any suggestions you have for us, we're more than open to listening to.
I have a suggestion. I live by the hospital. I'm Kim Kurzak, and the hospital has an advisory committee and a neighborhood advisory committee, and they actually take applications, and people from the neighborhood can apply. And I'm not sure who on the board or at the school would be involved, but it's an idea.
It's a great idea. It's a good start having a list over here tonight. The principal is responsible for whatever this matter.
Thank you for giving it to her.
Because she wants the right result to happen. I would leave it up to her to pick a representative group and go with it. That's a very good suggestion. We don't have to hang on. If we're going to meet before the 14th, whoever wants to be involved, sign the list. And the principal gets to review the candidates.
And I would just ask again, there's a list, maybe email, phone number, put that down so that we have it. We'll kind of see how many people are interested in meeting, and maybe put something on the website for anybody that wasn't able to attend tonight.
I think you can also reach out to the community members who spoke at the planning and zoning meeting. I think that's a good database of people who showed interest. They came to the city council meeting. They gave you 40 or 50 suggestions and ideas. To be honest, I thought I was at the wrong meeting tonight. I thought you all were going to address the 40 or 50 items that was brought to you during the official Elmhurst Zoning and Planning Committee. But it turned out to be a love fest, I think. We, they, and none of us want that. I think you guys created that by sending out bulletins saying, School District 205 parents, come support us against the neighbors around the school and show them that you want us to have these rights. Well, you created the problem.
Well, I don't actually, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
That the meeting tonight was supposed to go over the issues from the zoning and planning, and I don't think...
Well, actually, we addressed a variety of the issues that were brought forth this evening, and some of them came forth in showing what a potential tentative revised proposal was. So that was one. A second one was we were asked for some additional information by the Zoning and Planning Commission. What do other communities do? What other things exist? And we put that in. They asked for information about, what knowledge does the Board of Education have, and are they supportive of this proposal? And Mrs. Sosijic, Board President, who's here this evening, has written a letter that we will be forwarding on to the City Council. We are in the process of evaluating lights, and we'll evaluate sound, and that was an issue that came up at the Planning Commission. So we are trying to report on what we thought were the big high-level issues that came out as a result of that meeting and being genuine about it this evening. Our communication did not ask for people to come here to take a position this evening. Our communication was informing our entire community that we were having an informational meeting, and that was our intent. Now, the outcome of that is that people have positions. People have positions on either supporting or not supporting. But what I did hear this evening is that there seems to be a willingness for people to listen to multiple perspectives and a desire to come towards a solution that's going to work in everybody's best interest. I think we heard that this evening. And so, I think as part of this democratic process that we have, people just want to have their voice heard, and we wanted to give more opportunities for voices to be heard. We have not yet received the official transcripts from that September 9th meeting, and we agree that that would be a good database. We thought we would have received the transcripts. Thank you so much, because then we would have the names and addresses of the individuals who spoke. So we don't have that right now, but we are hoping to get that soon. So thank you for that suggestion as well. Are there any other comments? As we said, we would be here as late as anybody wanted till tonight.
I'm a sophomore at York, and I play lacrosse. And I started my freshman year, and that was the beginning. It was only been a year, and it was a club, and it was really it was a benefit to me, and I've had I don't know, it's been a positive effect to me, and I've learned a lot from it, and I've learned teamwork and leadership. And my mom went to school here, and they used to have a smoking room, an area, and it was. It's bad, and I think we'd rather have the turf field that we have now, instead of having a smoking area where kids would be able to go do that, instead of the turf field where we can go and play sports and be a school and have the spirit that we do. York is I don't know, it's an inspirational school, and yeah, it's a positive effect.
Hi, I'll just
I'm sorry. I'll just give one quick suggestion here. Why can't we go in front of the zoning committee, ask for a temporary moratorium so you could have your dates, form your citizen committee here, your neighborhood committee, meet with the people, and see what their concerns are and see if you can address them, okay? If we have to go to a vote, I mean, they're going to lose. And I'm a big supporter of the lights, but I don't think that's fair, quite frankly. I think they need to be heard. I don't think we've communicated well with them. I think we can communicate better with them. Let's see if we can address their concerns, not try and ram this, whatever the plan is, through here. And, you know, give it a couple of months. Get on a timeline to see if you can solve the problem. We should solve our own problems. We shouldn't have to be one of two communities that have an ordinance. You know, why can't we get together and solve this issue? So that's my suggestion.
I'm in love with you, and in a manly kind of a way. All right? I'm in love with you, too. I brought something with me tonight. My name is Greg Gills. Some of you may even know my father, Fred, who was principal at Sandburg Junior High School for, Lord, years. Oh, by the way, when I moved to Elmhurst, that was a field, a cornfield, and there was a farmhouse on it. And I stood in my backyard when that farmhouse burned. So I've been around for a little while. But you know, I'm a York Duke, too. Class of 1969. Think about that. You're 17 years old and you can scream 69 at every sporting event. It was pretty cool. I'm a wrestler. And it started here at York. I'm going to tell you a little bit about sports and what it does for your life and what it did for my life, and then I'm going to puzzle you because I'm one of those people right across the tracks. You get into wrestling, got me into college. I wrestled through college, helped get me my first job as a school teacher for 36 years, coached wrestling for 18 years, helped open my eyes to what sports and athletics can do for kids, helped set me on a teaching career that I just completed, actually. And there's been, you cannot find a stronger supporter of sports and what it can do for other kids' lives than you will for me, because I know what it did for me. But let me tell you a little something about shock and fear. For all these 60 years, and now I'm the second generation, I'm now raising the third generation in that same house, have lived in Never Never Land. And I mean that quite sincerely. For all of these years, we lived there in peace and quiet almost every day of the year. Almost every day. I'm retired now. I put a nice porch out of my house. I sit on my porch. I hear birds. I hear my neighbors. I hear these kids, these 25 kids running down the street. Pretty cool. And then something changes this year. I hear rap music. I hear music that penetrates my home. It penetrates the home of my neighbors. I cannot escape it by closing my windows. I cannot escape it by having in my main floor. I have to go to my basement to escape it. I can't have friends over to enjoy my yard anymore because it's there. It's present. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? This is different. And then the kind of ramped up of activities, lights and things like that, I'm going like, whoa, what's going on? Neighbors start talking. Neighbors become afraid. Why do you become afraid? You become afraid because you go, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to us? What's going on now? You hear about a meeting, at a council meeting, and then all of a sudden our idyllic 12 days is proposed to be 200-something, or whatever the number is. That's shocking. And that's why I really appreciated your points. It's shocking to us. Are we very many people? No, we're not very many people. A couple hundred probably. Love the school. My God, I probably owe my career to this school. But it shocks you. And it shocks you when you realize that it's inescapable. You can't close your doors and windows and get away from it. It's just flat out inescapable. So you become afraid. And what do you do when you become afraid? You react. You go to a council meeting. You get angry. You get upset. You say, hey, What are you doing to us here? And then, of course, York supporters hear that. What do? They get afraid too. They get afraid, they feel threatened. Why? Because it might affect their kids. All of this money that's been put into that incredible facility. And what do? They get angry. Oh, I can't do this, and that's all wrong. Well, let me tell you, number one, I lived in Never Never Land for I don't even know how many years. 12 nights, that's unreasonable. It's been unreasonable. It's a crime. On the other hand, what do I do see that makes me afraid? I see my neighbors try to put their kids down for naps, and I see the sound penetrate their houses. So that's an issue for us. It's like, wow, this is pretty intense. And I see tonight, though, let me apologize. Maybe on the behalf of what my piece has been in my neighborhood, I will apologize to you. I see things and efforts that the school has made to improve things. I see PA systems shut off now during practice. I hear coaches not using PA systems to direct. I hear, the voice is fantastic. It's like, what a sense of relief that you get. I realize I'm catharsing here a bit. But it's a little strange when you're used to tranquility day after day after day, and it changes to interruption, amplification, and whatever for consecutive days. And it makes you anxious. The idea I like the best, I like to become a participant. I plan on walking over and putting my name on that piece of paper there. Because I think that some of these problems we can solve in ways that are going to be even better for kids, that can get kids even involved at a higher level, at a different level, and get them involved with us, your local community, with us. I think it would be fantastic. Now, does it mean I'm not nervous? No, I'm very nervous. Does it mean that it's going to be good for me? No. My time is over now. I realize that. I am not going to have that peace and tranquility like I used to have. In my little neighborhood, I'm going to have to acquiesce that. I understand that. But at the same time, please understand people's fear in that neighborhood too, about promises that had been made and were not kept, about the way in which the process came up till today. I think this has been a huge improvement. We've made some mistakes. We know we want to get some use out of that field. That little neighborhood really, really supports it. But we would like everybody to realize, too, we have a number of 85-year-old women, at least two I can think of, on that street who are still living by themselves. We got lots of little kids. So what can we do to help solve some of those problems for these families, too? I mean, how cool is that? How cool is getting your school in community with you and say, hey, that lady that's over there, we gotta think about her next time when we're doing this. That'd be awesome. So anyway, I've rattled on a little bit. I didn't bring the letter jack. I thought about that no, sweater's enough. I would like to thank York for everything it has done for me. And I want to be a good neighbor too.
We really appreciate this exchange. We think this is the beginning of a really good dialogue and step. And I think, as we've indicated earlier, it's an opportunity for us to create more open dialogue. We would suggest that those of you who would like to be, on this next phase of the process of trying to work through the tentative agreement and try to come up with something that is acceptable to everyone, to please put your name and address, email address, and phone number on the paper out at the table. We certainly will make contact with the city and ask if they would reschedule our October 14th date to a November date. So we will do that. We have a working back timeline because that second part of the hearing is not the end of the process, as most of you know. It goes to another committee before it even goes to City Council. And so they too have a process by what they're putting things on. And so hopefully, ideally, we would like to have resolution for all of this by February before March begins, because I think it would relieve the anxiety of those students who participate in spring sports as well. And how we try to go forward from here. So we will do that. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to share information and giving us the opportunity to listen a little bit more this evening. So thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening.
Just briefly, I've been here 6 months. I know there's a lot of people that probably look at me and they're like, you're 32 years old. We don't care what you have to say. And I've heard some things from you especially. We've got polarizing views. I live next to York, and you guys are probably surprised to hear that I took my daughter and rolled her out to homecoming last week because she wanted to see the band. We went and saw the band. I have nothing against the lights, the music. It's all about two things. Number one, limits. Number two, accountability. That's all I have.